Hi, it's Mary Beth Decker with sacredgrove.com, where people and pets heal and connect. And I got Cindy Cowan with me today. Um, and we're going to talk about essential oils and other natural ways of keeping our animals healthy and happy. So Cindy, I'm going to read your bio and then we'll get into talking about what you've learned and what you can share with us today. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Cindy is an essential oil lifestyler and certified animal aromatherapist. In 2016, she became interested in holistic healthcare solutions after discovering doTERRA essential oils. Her love of nature and science led to a new career of educating and sharing plant-based tools, essential oils, to support mindset, mood, and emotions. She can assess and recommend alternative solutions to help animals with their behavioral, emotional, and health issues with virtual consultations. She's passionate about helping people and animals live healthier, happier lives using essential oils and other natural solutions as a powerful tool for promoting wellness. So welcome, Cindy. I'm so glad you're here today. We get to talk about this.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So tell me more. What drew you to essential oils specifically?
Um, Western medicine had made me sicker.
Oh,
Back in 2016, we lived in Central Texas, and that's where I got exposed to all kinds of pollen and pollution in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and never had allergies my whole life. And, went to the doctor and bought over-the-counter medications for allergies. And through, I guess, probably a good 1 to 2 years, probably 2 years long, I couldn't get well. Like, it was just like everybody else at work. Everyone had the sneezing and the coffee, the sinus pressure, all that stuff. So I woke up one day and I had severe cotton mouth. I had completely dried out my whole head with all the
oh,
medication, right?
oh,
So that's what it's geared to do, is to dry up all that drainage. And I didn't know any better. And so I met a lady at a evening event, and she had a table where she was offering make your own organic hand scrubs. And she was a doTERRA advocate, wellness advocate. And I was fascinated. I was like, whoa, this is cool. So I made, organic sugar and avocado oil and lavender essential oil. And so I signed up for her newsletter, and loved the product, the handmade hand scrub that we had made. And when I was getting her newsletter, I read it from top to bottom and clicked all the links. And I was like, what? These are pretty cool. And when I woke up that day with the severe cotton mouth, I reached out to her and I'm like everybody else, really, does it work? And she's like, yes, I guarantee you. And
oh,
so my first purchase was lemon, lavender, and peppermint essential oils. I got them, asked her what was the best way to get them going in my body, and about 3 drops of each into a little glass of water, and you swish it around in your mouth gently, and it absorbs into your skin, into your sinuses, and then it's safe enough to drink. You swallow it, it gets into your system, so it gets into your bloodstream and then
yeah.
throughout your body. And the next day, the cotton mouth was almost gone. And then the following day, it was all gone completely.
Oh,
And I could breathe. There was no more sinus pressure. Haven't looked back, so just continue to reach out to her. Well, what can you do for this? What is the solution for this? And she would share. And I went, So slowly built up my collection of essential oils, and I felt like a sponge. I just want to absorb all the information in. So that's kind of where it started, as a customer first.
I see. Okay. And tell me again, what was it for the allergies and stuff, the cotton mouth?
It's
Tell me
called
again.
the Power Trio: lemon, lavender, and peppermint.
Holy cow. Okay.
Yep.
You got me. I'm intrigued. Okay. So, but okay. Did you find that they worked so well that you just switched over, or was it gradual, or did you just fall in love? And
It
because
was
we're very prone to
gradual.
use essential oils.
Yeah. Gradual at first, first was the head issue. And then at that, a couple of months passed, and then it was we were about to move to a different city, and I've been self-employed since 2000. I was a virtual assistant since 2000. And so I worked out of the house. We were getting ready to move. My son and his fiance were graduated from college, about to start their lives and get ready for marriage. And my youngest, was about to go away to college and trying to sell the house, all the things. And I could not get anything done. I couldn't focus because my mind was overflowing with the to-do list and all the things. And so I called her up again. I'm like, I'm gonna ask, is there something to help me with like focusing? I have all the, I just, I'm, it's making me anxious. And so she recommended a blend called In Tune. It's called the Focusing Blend.
Uh,
Bought that. It worked. It's just, so then I learned about the physical aspects of the essential oils, and then I was starting to learn about the emotional side. And so every oil, every lemon lavender, the blends has an effect on our body with, our emotions and our physical well-being. And I could not learn enough. I read all the information, and then slowly would get a book here and there. Um, yeah, that's
yeah, so neat. Well, and so my little cat Shadow is reminding me. So let's talk about us, the pets.
right.
Oh, so what switched you to being a pet essential oil person? How did that go?
First of all, I grew up in South Texas. So I grew up going fishing and being outside and always
Mm,
having always a dog or two. Um, my mom loved ducks, rabbits, so I grew up with animals. And we went camping and we did lots of outdoor things. So I grew up with the love of nature and animals. And at one point in time, I wanted to be a marine biologist. Just I was by the Gulf of Mexico, and I loved Jacques Cousteau growing up. I loved his shows, and life took me in a different direction. And when I had become a wellness advocate, or as a customer, and when we moved, I flipped the switch and made it to where it's a business. So I became a wellness advocate, so I could share and actually build a business. And my upline, she invited me to go to the doTERRA conference in Salt Lake City, probably 6 years ago. And I went with her, and up on stage, they had lots of speakers and events and stuff, but one of the speakers on stage was Dr. Janet Rourke, and she is a veterinarian on the doTERRA Education Board for
mhm.
animal aromatherapy. And I went, what? Animal aromatherapy? Huh? And so I was like, this is cool. And listen to her talk about the power of essential oils. Again, she was a customer first for her health issues. And then she's like, let's start. She used them on her animals. So, she has horses and dogs and cats. And then she was a regular veterinarian in a sense. And she
Yep,
started to incorporate some of the oils into her practice. And not that it was brand new, but this was her story, right?
right.
And I was utterly fascinated. Had to follow her on Facebook. She had a Facebook page. And then I started to follow her, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And during that time, I started to follow her and read everything. My daughter was given sort of a hug from a friend of mine.
Mm,
Didn't want her anymore. She was very high maintenance. What it was is she was being ignored. She was left alone in the house all day. And she was I call her the runt of the litter because she was very tiny, very thin for a pug. And so we got her, and she just wanted love. She needed love. And we started to notice that under her armpits was a rash. And I'm going, so, okay. And so I would read on Dr. Janet's page about rashes, and it's, it recommended certain essential oils, which, and it depends on, just like with humans, dilution and application. And not all oils, are meant for animals, just like humans. You have to know what you're doing. And so I read everything. And so I diluted the oil, essential oils with fractionated coconut oil. And so it started to clear up, but it wasn't 100% going away. And then I started to learn in her page about gut health, same as with humans. So what animals eat, they can be allergic to it. They're just like us. They could have allergies to egg or corn or any of the fillers, the wheats, the grains. You just don't know. They could be allergic to chicken, or beef. And I thought, so did more research. I stopped buying some of the store brands. I went to try to buy as healthy kibble as I could afford. And then I just started to make her food from scratch, with ground turkey and vegetables. And that girl loves salads like lettuce and tomato. She was and pumpkin and all the fruits, and we're going, whoa, wait. And and so totally switched her, and the rash went away, and she started to gain weight. She wasn't as thin, and she started to fill out a little bit and look a good healthy. And so that was like, that was amazing. And so I just kept following Dr. Janet, and then about 2 years ago, she made an announcement on her page. She's like, you ladies have been asking for it, and I'm gonna offer it. Animal aromatherapy certification. And so you can sign up. She's got 2 levels, level 1, level 2. And it's just level 2 is way, way up there on the scale. It's like serious getting to know, more chemistry, more biology, terminology, like working up the ladder for your certification. And so I did it. I was like, I got it. I have to. I love animals, and animals make people happy, and we want them to be happy and healthy. And so it just made sense for what I wanted to do in my life, to help everybody, be as
Really?
healthy as possible. Yeah.
So, that's so cool. So talk to me a little bit about safety in using these, because I mean, I've done my own research in this area, and I don't want anybody to just say, well, I can use essential oils, and let me just pick this one up and give it to my animal. Uh, Give us
No.
a few precautions, just so that we keep this honest and people take care of their beloved
Well,
companion.
first of all, cats are the most sensitive, and there's probably, I want to say maybe 10 oils, if even that they can tolerate and diluted. And so my job as an animal aromatherapist is to guide my clients to the right oils and how to use them. How much dilution, it depends on the weight of the animal. It depends on what's going on, sensitivities. You always try it a little bit at first, and they may or may not like it. But if they react to it, like with a rash, or if they just, go bonkers, then that's not the right oil. Um, it's just like with some people, there's a few of my friends that cannot tolerate lavender. And so what else is calming? Cedar wood. And so when people ask you, you just can't always give a straight answer, because we need to know the history. And so my intake form ask a lot of questions. Just like if you're going to go to a doctor or a veterinarian, we need to, ask questions. Google is not the doctor. You cannot believe everything you read on the internet. I mean, I studied under a veterinarian, and I bought the book that she recommended that tells the truth about what you can and can't use and how to dilute it and diffuse it and that sort of thing.
That's great. And
Mhm.
I've noticed, because I was working with a veterinarian while she was doing acupuncture, she was bringing doTERRA out with my dogs. And it was really cool to watch their reactions because she would just open the top and just put it towards them. And if they liked it, they'd face it. And if they didn't like it, they'd turn around and look the other way. I mean, you could even see which one they were called to.
That's called self-selection.
There you go.
That's the process.
Yeah.
And an example of you never know. My daughter has another pug. The first pug passed away, and so she has another pug. This boy loves all essential oils. Like he sniffs them, and the tongue will come out like he wants to lick the bottle, you know. And he is, since he was a puppy, because she uses essential oils, he's used to them. So he grew up with diffusers going and lavender on his spine to calm him. So he's very receptive. My Labrador, who's a rescue, there's just a handful that he's like will not ignore, like turn away. There's a few that he'll smell and then he just kind of backs off. And so, but I also know that when I rescued him, he had severe anxiety because he had been abandoned at a park. And so it took many months of me, diffusing and putting it on his spine and just, giving him the love that he needed and the reassurance to help him, have back to as close to normal as a life as possible. They still remember. Animals remember trauma, and people don't understand it. They can't vocalize it, but when they act a certain way, and that's the behavior part, you know, they had a little bit of trauma in their life
Yeah.
for, yeah.
Well, as an animal communicator, I'm asking when you see the anxiety, where does it come from? And they do have memories of it. I'm
Mhm.
so surprised people think that animals are just in the now. Yeah, they do tend to enjoy it right here, but they
Mhm.
still have those memories and those reactions from stuff that you wouldn't want them to have gone through. And so that's
Mhm.
really cool to hear that essential oils will even help smooth that past for them, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we as wellness advocates, we cannot say anything cures or in that situation. We're taught, compliance. You don't ever say that.
It's-
I have a cure for this, or I know what's going to work for sure. All you can do is trial and error. And so
Mhm.
for the most part, it should work, but it may be a case that that particular animal or, situation, may not respond to it like we think they should. And there's every essential oil, um, might have similar properties, but some like, lavender. Well, if they don't like the lavender, they don't respond, they might respond better to cedar wood.
Mm.
You just don't know. And sometimes it could be, that's why with my sessions, I include two more follow-ups, let some time pass. How are they doing? Maybe we need to switch to a different oil kind of thing. So you don't ever want to assume, oh, that's going to work. So,
Okay, yeah, but that's real life. I'm just thinking when you go to a doctor, you
mhm,
hope for the best and sometimes things switch and things like that, or
so
that didn't work
true.
at all, we got to go somewhere else. So I don't, I think it's fair to say it is trial and error and you go
Yeah.
with what has worked well, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
We'd love
nothing
to
at
have
all.
miracles in every part of our life, but that doesn't happen as often as we'd like. And when it works anyway, that's the important part, when you
That's
finally
right.
figure it out.
That's right.
Look, let's go back to cats for a second.
Yeah.
I have done diffusion with cats and just like kept the door open. But I got kind of freaked out one time when I Googled and they said, no essential oils for cats. And I thought, mine have not had a terrible reaction. I thought that was a bit strong. Any
Yeah.
thoughts or comments about that?
Again, it's just like Dr. Janet said when we were in class, it's just that, that's not the place to find the accurate information. You do need to speak to, an animal aromatherapist or, a person that's in the industry that they have studied, they've got their certification, to get those answers. But common sense needs to make a little bit of a play in that. Would you put yourself in a tiny room with the door shut and the window down and just surround yourself in that oil? It could be too much even for humans. And so you want it in a room where there's like high ceilings and leave the door open. We even have ceiling, this is Texas, we have ceiling fans in every room. And so even with the diffuser going, we still have fans going. And so do we still get the benefits? Yes. Because it's going to be in there, but it's being dispersed throughout the room, and it's kind of flowing.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, because we did it. And then when the cats got, she got tired, she she'd leave. It'd be
Mhm.
that simple. No big
Yeah,
deal.
but
Yeah,
it gives them a choice too. That if they find it offensive, they don't leave.
yeah.
I mean, you would think they would. I would think they would. My
I,
dogs are so used to. I have a diffuser in every room.
oh,
Bathrooms include plug-ins.
wow.
I mean, they're essential oil plugins. Let me
Yeah,
clarify
yeah.
that. Yeah, doTERRA came out with their own waterless diffuser, and
Oh,
so
that's
it's pretty
interesting.
cool. They sell out so fast.
Um, so just for fun, tell me a couple of your best stories of somebody that came to you. And I love that pug story, and I'd love to hear a couple more where you helped people, or excuse me, helped dogs out or cats out or some animals when you were
Okay.
working.
A friend of mine, her dog had kidney issues, or he had a failing kidney, and they had spent a lot of money and time at the vet trying to give him medication and some treatment. And it got to a point where the doctor said, there's not much anymore that we can do. And he said, I can give you this one prescription that will pretty much, he'll sleep. He'll just sleep. It's like it was a pain medication. I don't remember the proper word for it, but she reached out to me and she goes, and she was in her career, she's retired now. She was a hospice social worker. And she said, I know it's his end of life, but I want to enjoy having him be awake so I can spend time with him. And she said, I don't want him knocked out all day long, basically 24/7. He's asleep. He's knocked out from the drugs. And she said, can you make any recommendations? And so again, lavender was calming for him, and she had some. Um, and so she started to put that on his spine, and then she put it into a little spray bottle, the oil with some water, and spritz his bedding. And she said, oh my gosh, Cindy, he's sleeping calmly without the prescription to knock him out. He's way calmer. He wakes up and he's just chill. And I'm able to kind of talk to him. So it also gave her time, or was giving her more time to be with him. And, it's hard for anyone when a pet or a human is in that phase of the end of life. And so she was very thankful for that.
Oh,
Uh,
that's wonderful.
yeah, and then I was actually traveling. This is fun. I love to be, help friends out. But a friend of mine called me as we were traveling, and she's like, "My girl has a UTI," and she goes, "It's the weekend, and I can't afford, to take her to the vet. You know, where they had moved to was very, very expensive." And
Mm.
she said, "Do you have any recommendations?" I said, "Got any lemon essential oil?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, okay, so fresh water, and it has to be either in a glass or ceramic or a metal bowl, not plastic. And some fresh water and a drop or two of the oil, and have her drink it, because citrus is cleansing. And so the dog did a little bit better that weekend.
Oh,
It
thank
wasn't,
goodness.
yeah, so citrus, that was another one that she
Oh,
went.
lovely.
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool.
So it's
So,
kind of important, and I'll be, doing some future articles on, creating a first aid kit for animals. There's some
mhm.
basic necessity that you should have. Another good thing to have, it's for humans, but you could have another kit separate for your animals, is helichrysum. So helichrysum, I have it in the 5 ml, so it's full strength, or I have a roller bottle and I have extra. So that one is for the animals and one's for the humans. But you can actually, so if they accidentally cut themselves, um, they're outside, maybe a bush, a dried bush thorn cuts them or something, it's a blood clotter.
Oh,
And so, you can actually put some, if it depends on the person. I would rub it on my finger and then dab that area, and
mhm.
it helps it clot, and it heals much faster. So that's pretty good.
It's pretty nice. It's good to know.
Yeah, so you can actually have your own little travel kit, even if you travel and you take your animals with you. You never know when they might accidentally cut themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
I have a
laughter.
memory of my dogs when I was on Treasure Island, stationed there, and
Mhm.
uh, Missy stepped on something and she just cut her paw so badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoulda, coulda use it.
Lavender's good. I never had thought about it before, but some dogs' pads, and I'm sure cats are too, if the concrete's too hot, or asphalt concrete, they can burn their pads.
Yes,
And so lavender's great for burns and skin.
that's good because we're gonna hit a real hot summer here in Virginia. It's already starting, so
Mhm.
I have to put my hands down on the asphalt to see if it's something that is safe for my dogs. I'll probably be doing that in a few weeks.
Mhm.
So,
Well, you'll
that-
notice they'll start to when they walk, they'll go lightly on one foot if you're watching,
Yeah,
their foots won't be evenly on the ground. They'll kind of like barely put it on the ground, which means they could have bruised it, maybe
uh,
stepped on a rock, or they got something between their pads where the little fur skin area is.
yeah,
So it's just something it's a great tool to have.
it is wonderful. So is there anything else I didn't ask? Um, before I ask what everybody probably is saying is how do we get a hold of this lady and use her skills? But anything else, Cindy?
Um, I think we've touched on it briefly again. Animals can't talk, obviously. I want to encourage people to watch their dogs, how they act, how they behave, and just don't assume they're being naughty, that kind of thing. There's something going on, and just be more aware, because they act a way for a reason. And sometimes it's annoying, but we need to. I also learned that when my dog's barking out the front window, he's protecting his home. And if you yell at them, shut up, be quiet, the one day they're quiet, you wish they wouldn't have been quiet, just you never know. And just to be more
Yeah,
aware.
that's a really good point. That's a lot of times that when I'm communicating with animals, I'm finding out that we mistake a certain behavior for something like anger or a grudge,
Mhm.
when it's actually, it's sometimes, many times it's a physical issue, or it's a benign reason, but we give it human emotions. And it's funny because they do have a lot of emotions, but generally grudges are not one of them. And taking it out on, my cat's peeing because they're mad at me. And like, not usually, not usually. They're feeling some energy
Yeah,
or they have a UTI. But you're right. It's like, shift your mindset, see what else might be happening, right?
definitely.
And you'll be a much better person for them. And when you start looking for those, thank you so much for bringing that up.
You're welcome. Well, that's like right up your alley because you
She's like,
understand
yes,
that.
please listen. Please listen, that it could be something else and find out.
Mhm.
So, how can people reach you? You said you work with people, there's forums and helping people even virtually. So talk to me about that.
Right. My website, the texasoillady.com, there's a tab for animal care.
Okay.
And so you can, people can actually, click a button to schedule a 30-minute Zoom call with me.
Okay.
And it can be for themselves because there's a button to check if it's for you or for your animal. And then if they do choose to work with me, there's a totally different intake form, which are for paid version of the sessions to really work in depth, and so that I can create a care plan that's going to help the animal to feel better. People just think that you can pop an answer out real quick and you can't, you have to know, how long this has been going on. Gut health is so important on the rest of the body because when the gut's healthy, should eliminate the other situations, not 100%, but it's usually a good starting point of like, what
Mhm.
are you feeding them? And a lot of people, there was this documentary done back a while back, and someone recommended that for me to watch it on YouTube, and it blew my mind. I had no idea how animal food was made,
It's
manufactured
horrible.
with all the junk and the fillers and the chemicals. And, here we promote it for humans. Well, animals need it too. Your horses, your cows. I live in Texas. I haven't worked on a horse yet, but I'm looking forward to working with horses and cows. And that's down the road for my husband and myself as we want to have a small ranch or
Oh,
farmstead, and have a few animals. And I can't wait to, help them when they need it. And there's lots of solutions. There's a time and a place for a veterinarian, like there is for a doctor. We're not discounting those at all. But if you can help yourself or your animals to feel better at home, try some holistic solutions first, if you're open-minded and want to hear about it.
that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm all for that. I agree with you. I still see the regular vet, then I got my holistic vet. And for me too, obviously.
They're hard to find. I'm in West Texas and there's no holistic vet here.
Oh, no, probably.
And when
I'm a little bit, I'm luckier that in the way but you have to put up with traffic, so a little bit less that. Okay, so thank you so much for getting
Thank
us thinking
you.
about
You're
this.
welcome.
And what I'm gonna do is, when I post this, I'll put the links to your websites and all the other places. I'm looking down here at your Facebook business page and all that stuff so people can find you and reach out to you. You got animals, you got issues. Yes, I'm an animal communicator. There's things I can do, but I like to say, do what works, try it all. And what Cindy's talking about, if it works, and we know it does, check it out too, please.
Definitely. Well,
Well, have a good one.
thank you
We
so
will
much,
say
Mary Beth.
goodbye till next time.